In today's video, we explore the 1991 Introduction to Games Workshop, which documents a host of classic GW games from more than 3 decades ago. Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel. I'm Lee, your Oldhammered host. Today we travel back to the year 1991, which gave us Operation Desert Storm, the end of the Warsaw Pact, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and the equally popular Highlander 2 The Quickening. It was also the year that Games Workshop published this very cool 24-page promo booklet, which offers a vibrant snapshot of the various games, products, and publications GW was offering 30-plus years ago. To put things into perspective, this was the era of Warhammer Fantasy 3rd Edition, the hardback Realm of Chaos books, and Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader, though Warhammer 40k 2nd Edition was just a couple of years off at this point. And while Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40k are both prominently featured in this booklet, about half the pages are devoted to GW's boxed games, such as Space Hulk, Blood Bowl, and Talisman, which isn't surprising since the company had been producing its own board games since the early 1980s, or perhaps even sooner, so tabletop board games were just part of their DNA in the early days. So just for fun, I thought we'd take a stroll down Oldhammer Lane and flip through this classic Introduction to Games Workshop. While we're doing that, if you see any old favorites in here or any games you wish you'd picked up back in the day, please leave a comment in the comment section. I always like reading what you have to say, plus it makes the algorithm happy. Okay, let's get started. The opening spread here is dedicated to Warhammer Fantasy Battle, which the first paragraph there describes as the world's most popular fantasy tabletop game. I'm not sure if Warhammer Fantasy was still the flagship Warhammer product at this time, but the game was in its 3rd edition by 1991, and was supported by classic supplements such as Warhammer Siege and the 2 Realm of Chaos books. There was even a Mighty Fortress foam castle for Warhammer Fantasy Battle that you might have seen us use in one of our recent battle report videos. The next pages are mostly dedicated to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which GW launched in 1986, but then licensed to other companies, including Fantasy Flight Games and most recently Cubicle 7 Games. I don't know if this is accurate, but I've read that when Games Workshop decided to become more of a miniatures-based business, the RPG really didn't fit into that model. You only need so many minis to play it, after all. And so it was subbed out to other publishers. If you know anything more about this, please leave a comment. While I was never particularly interested in the Warhammer Fantasy RPG, I do wish that I had picked up a couple of the Warhammer Townscapes and the Citadel Dungeon tiles, as they would be really handy to have. Next, we have 2 pages devoted to Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, described here as the science fiction battle game from the makers of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and the best-selling game of its type. The right-hand page showcases classic Citadel miniature box sets, including the Plastic Space Marines, Imperial Guard, and Space Dwarves, as well as Metal Orcs, Terminators, and Harlequins. I had one of the original Predators at one point. He's probably patrolling a landfill right now, which is a tragedy in and of itself, but the real tragedy is that I didn't pick up a couple of boxes of Rhinos back when they were dirt cheap. Next, we get a page discussing the very collectible 1990 Orc supplement for Warhammer 40k, which I sadly missed out on. There's also info on Citadel's line of plastic and metal Space Orcs, as well as the Battle Wagon multi-part plastic kit. I'll take 2 of those, please. On the right, there's info on Space Hulk 1st Edition, as well as the Deathwing Space Hulk Mission Generator expansion, which had 20 new board sections. There's also the Genestealer expansion, which included 5 librarians, 10 Genestealer hybrids, 8 large board sections, and a new psionic combat system. I missed out on Space Hulk 1st Edition, but I did play the 1993 PC game, where I learned the phrase, "The hive mind has blinded our sensors," which comes in handy whenever I can't find my car keys or my cell phone. Here is a very colorful page for Advanced Space Crusade, featuring those double-decker plastic Tyranid warriors and plastic Space Marine scouts. We're going to talk quite a bit more about this game in a future video, so stay tuned for that. And then on the right, there is Mighty Empires, the game of sweeping conflict and dark intrigue in the Warhammer world. I know absolutely nothing about this game. Is it like Risk, or maybe TSR's old Divine Right game? If you know what the scoop is, please let me know in the comments. Next, here's a full spread dedicated to Talisman, the magical quest game, which originated in the early 1980s, bounced around from publisher to publisher, and is now on its revised 4th edition if you can find a copy. I was actually surprised how many Talisman expansions are available on Amazon right now, but I wasn't able to find a copy of the core game, so perhaps it's out of print. The thing that most interests me about this particular version of Talisman, however, is the line of metal Citadel figures, there are some of them, that players could use to replace the cardstock stand-ups. Here is an ad from White Dwarf 100 featuring a Space Marine, Cyborg, Space Pirate, Astronaut, Astropath, and the legendary Chainsaw Warrior himself. I have some of these, but I'd really like to find the Cyborg and Astronaut someday. Flipping the page, we find Advanced Hero Quest, the game of heroic roleplay in a world of magic and mayhem, which included 36 Citadel miniatures and full rules for solo play. This version of the game was apparently published by Games Workshop, while the original Hero Quest was a Milton Bradley product that was co-designed with Games Workshop, or something to that effect. If you know the story, leave a comment. We've never played Advanced Hero Quest, but we did live stream 4 games of the original version back in 2021, which you can check out if you're interested. I'll leave a link in the video description below. Now we get to Blood Bowl 2nd Edition. I threw out a lot of hobby stuff when I left the nest, but I still have my 1988 copy of Blood Bowl, along with a pile of unpainted lead figures. Someday I vow I will finish those Skaven. And in the years since, I picked up the rules and tiles for Dungeon Bowl, as well as the Blood Bowl Companion and Star Players books. We've played 4 games of Blood Bowl 2nd Edition on the channel, 2 live streams and 2 regular videos. I'll leave a link to those in the video description as well, in case anyone's up for some Oldhammer Fantasy football. Okay, Adeptus Titanicus and Space Marine. Way back when, I bought my brother the Adeptus Titanicus box set as a gift, thinking we'd play it one day, which we never did. Then he up and moved and gave it to his roommate on the way out the door, so that was a real drag. Looking back, what I really regret is not picking up a couple of Epic Armies back when they were released, because now I could use them for small-scale games of Grimdark Future or Xenos Rampant. I keep hearing rumors that Epic may return someday, so perhaps I will get a second crack at it. Here we have a collection of Warhammer novels and some info on White Dwarf magazine, which in its early years was self-described as the Role-Playing Games Monthly, but eventually pivoted to become Games Workshop's monthly game magazine, focusing on GW products instead of games from other publishers. And here we have the Citadel color paints and brushes, with the old-style paint pots and some very Easter egg-looking colors. I still have a few of these old paints from back in the day, like some snakebite leather, and it's still good. I still use it. Okay, then, that is our look at the 1991 Introduction to Games Workshop booklet. I have these 2 Blood Bowl miniatures here, and I have this Chaos Dwarf swivel gun, but I don't have the dwarves, so they're up to something somewhere, I'm sure. Also, there are a couple of fax numbers down here for contacting the Games Workshop offices in Nottingham and Baltimore. I wonder if they still work. Alright, I guess that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you got your quick nostalgia fix. We'll be back in short order with some more hobby nonsense. But until then, take care of yourselves, don't let the bastards get you down, and we'll see you next time.
The hive mind has blinded our senses,